For 51 years, it was a ghost. A page of gibberish staring back at a world desperate for answers. These were 340 characters, mailed by a killer who called himself the Zodiac, a phantom who terrorized Northern California before vanishing, leaving behind a trail of bodies and a thick legacy of fear. The world's best cryptographers, from the FBI and NSA to countless amateur sleuths, all stared at that page, trying to force its secrets into the light. For half a century, it held its silence, a testament to the killer's chilling intellect. It was the Mount Everest of unsolved codes. And then, in the quiet hum of computer servers, 3 private citizens, separated by entire oceans, did the impossible. They made the ghost speak. But the message that emerged wasn't the confession everyone was praying for. It wasn't a name. It was something far more disturbing, a final, taunting laugh from the abyss. What secret did the Zodiac take to his grave? And why does finally knowing it only pull us deeper into America's most haunting cold case? Before the puzzles, there was the fear. Before the phantom, there was the predator. The story of the Zodiac doesn't begin with codes, but with the brutal reality of violence under the cold, dark skies of Northern California. It was the late 1960s, a time of supposed innocence and cultural revolution. But in the quiet towns around the Bay Area, a different revolution was dawning, one of pure terror. It all started on December 20th, 1968, on a lonely lover's lane in Benicia. High school students Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday were on their first date. In the darkness, another car pulled up. A man got out, and in a swift, brutal flurry of violence, their young lives were over. The attack was so sudden and seemingly random that police were baffled. They had no motive, no suspects. The only description they had was of a madman. For months, an uneasy quiet settled over the community. But it was just the calm before a much greater storm. 7 months later, on the 4th of July, 1969, he struck again. In a park in Vallejo, another young couple, Darlene Farron and Michael Mageau, were sitting in their car when a vehicle silently approached. A man walked right up to the passenger side door and just opened fire. Darlene died from her injuries. Michael, despite being shot multiple times, miraculously survived. He became one of the very few people to see the killer and live. But his description was vague, a portly figure, a face lost to the trauma and the night. Less than an hour after the attack, the phone rang at the Vallejo Police Department. The voice on the other end was calm, measured, almost monotone. He took credit for the attack on Farron and Mageau, and also for the murders of Jensen and Faraday months earlier. The Phantom now had a voice, and soon, he'd give himself a name. On July 31st, 1969, the terror took on a new, twisted dimension. 3 letters arrived, one for each of the major Bay Area newspapers: the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each letter contained details only the real killer could possibly know. The author demanded the papers print his letters, or he'd unleash a weekend killing spree, gunning down a dozen people. But it was what he included that would forever change criminal history. Each letter contained 1/3 of a 408-character cipher. At the end of his letter to the Chronicle, he signed off with a symbol, a circle with a cross through it. A legend was born. The press and the world now had a name for their phantom. He called himself the Zodiac. The arrival of the Z408 cipher was a declaration of war, not just on the police, but on society itself. It was a direct challenge, a gauntlet thrown down to the public. This killer wasn't just content with murder, he wanted an audience. He wanted to play a game where only he knew the rules. The message was loud and clear: I am smarter than all of you. I am in control. The Bay Area was gripped by a special kind of panic. The murders were terrifying enough, but the ciphers added an intellectual, almost theatrical, element to the horror. It was like a real-life supervillain had leaped from the pages of a comic book, leaving taunting riddles in his wake. The nation's most powerful intelligence agencies, the FBI and the CIA, were immediately tasked with breaking the code. The greatest minds in cryptography were now locked in a battle of wits with a killer. A week went by, and the cipher remained stubbornly silent. The pressure was immense. The killer's threat of another killing spree hung heavy in the air. What dark thoughts were locked away in that grid of symbols? It really seemed, for a moment, that the Zodiac had created an unbreakable puzzle. But the breakthrough didn't come from a government lab. It came from a modest home in Salinas, California. A high school teacher, Donald Hardin, and his wife, Betty, were fascinated by the puzzle in the papers. They weren't professionals, but they had sharp minds and a crucial insight into the ego of a braggart. Betty had a hunch, a simple but brilliant guess. She figured that any killer this narcissistic would almost certainly use the words "I" and "kill" in his message. Using that assumption, a technique called a crib, they went to work. With just paper, pencils, and sheer persistence, they sat at their kitchen table, testing theories and hunting for patterns. Slowly, painstakingly, the gibberish started to look like words. On August 8th, only 8 days after the cipher was mailed, the Hardins did what the most powerful intelligence agencies in the world could not. They cracked the Z408. The world held its breath as the message was revealed. It was a chilling glimpse into a deeply disturbed mind, a rambling, misspelled manifesto of pure ego. It read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all the I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife." The message was shocking. It confirmed the police's worst fears. The killer was motivated by a twisted desire for sport and a bizarre, self-made religion where he'd rule over his victims in the afterlife. He saw people as game animals and murder as the ultimate thrill. Refusing to give his name, framed as a way to protect his slave collecting, was a masterclass in taunting. But the message ended with 18 seemingly random letters. EBIHHPITI. To this day, those final characters are an unsolved enigma, a final puzzle within the larger one. The Zodiac was furious his code had been broken so quickly, but his thirst for attention was endless. He continued his campaign of terror. In September, he struck again at Lake Berryessa, wearing a bizarre, executioner-style hood with his symbol stitched on the front. He brutally stabbed college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. Cecilia died from her injuries, but Brian survived, providing another terrifying, yet incomplete, description. 2 weeks later, the Zodiac committed his most brazen crime yet, shooting and killing cab driver Paul Stein in the heart of San Francisco. He was nearly caught, but slipped through the fingers of law enforcement. He then mailed a piece of Stein's blood-soaked shirt to the San Francisco Chronicle as a gruesome trophy. He was escalating, growing bolder, and his next challenge would be his masterpiece. On November 8, 1969, the Zodiac sent another letter to the San Francisco Chronicle. Inside was a new cryptogram, this one with 340 characters. It would become known as the Z340, where the first cipher was a pretty straightforward substitution code. This one was immediately seen as something far more devious. The Zodiac had learned from his mistake. He wasn't going to be unmasked by a couple of school teachers again. This was his answer to the world, a puzzle designed not just to hide a message, but to mock the very idea of a solution. The Z340 was a cryptographic nightmare. It used 63 unique symbols, which told experts it was likely a homophonic substitution cipher, meaning a single letter could be represented by multiple symbols to throw off standard analysis. But it was clear there was more to it. The Zodiac had layered his creation with other traps. The symbols were arranged chaotically. There were no obvious word breaks, no clear starting point. It was a wall of pure symbolic noise. The FBI and the National Security Agency, NSA, threw everything they had at it. These are organizations whose entire purpose is to break codes far more complex than anything a serial killer should be able to create. Both failed. The world's most sophisticated code-breaking institutions were completely stumped. The cipher was a black hole, swallowing every attempt to shine a light on it. As law enforcement hit a brick wall, the Z340 became a legend for amateur sleuths. For decades, it was the holy grail of unsolved codes. People dedicated their lives to it, sacrificing careers and relationships for the Zodiac's puzzle. Countless theories popped up. Some thought the solution was tied to astrology, others to musical notes or complex math. Every few years, a new solution would make headlines, only to be quickly debunked. Meanwhile, the Zodiac kept taunting. He sent more letters, including a map of the Bay Area marked over Mount Diablo. He claimed this map, along with a short 32-character cipher, would lead to a bomb he had buried. No bomb was ever found, and the map code, Z32, and another tiny 13-character cipher, Z13, that followed the line "My name is," also remained unsolved. Then, after 1974, the confirmed letters just stopped. The Zodiac Killer vanished, leaving behind 5 confirmed deaths, 2 survivors, and a set of puzzles that seemed destined to stay locked forever. The case went cold, but the Z340 remained, a silent, 51-year monument to his terrifying genius. The years bled into decades. The Summer of Love became a distant memory. The victims' names faded from the headlines, and the terror in the Bay Area subsided, replaced by the lingering chill of a ghost story. The Zodiac case was no longer a frantic investigation, but a piece of American folklore. Investigators retired, suspects died, leads dried up. The only part of the case that was still alive, still pulsing, was the Z340. For 51 years, that cipher was a siren song, luring in generation after generation of codebreakers. Before the internet, sleuths shared theories through the mail. But with the dawn of online forums, these scattered individuals found each other. Websites sprang up, acting as massive libraries for every letter, every piece of evidence, every single symbol meticulously cataloged and analyzed. The Z340 became a crowdsourced obsession. Thousands of people, academics, programmers, and hobbyists, collaborated and competed. But this created a lot of noise. The forums were often filled with pet theories and personal attacks. The cipher was so maddeningly complex that it acted like a cryptographic Rorschach test. People saw what they wanted to see, often twisting the evidence to fit their favorite suspect. You really can't overstate how hard this code was. Cryptographers figured the Zodiac had added another layer of complexity on top of the substitution, probably a transposition, where the letters of the message were scrambled according to a hidden rule. That meant that even if you guessed the right symbols, you'd still have an anagrammed mess. You had to find the correct substitutions in the correct order to read them in. The number of possibilities was astronomical. A central figure in this modern effort was David Oranchak, a software developer from Virginia. For over a decade, he ran a website dedicated to the Zodiac ciphers, acting as a sober voice in a sea of wild speculation. He, like so many others, spent years running experiments, testing ideas, and hitting dead ends. The silence of the cipher was a testament to the killer's success. He had created something that had outsmarted the very best for half a century. It became a cultural artifact, a symbol of the ultimate unsolved mystery. The FBI had given up. The SFPD officially marked the case inactive in 2004, though it was later reopened. For all intents and purposes, the Zodiac had won. He terrified a region, created a myth, and then vanished, leaving behind one final, impenetrable riddle. The Z340 was the lock on the door to his identity, and for 51 years, nobody could find the key. The key to unlocking the Zodiac's 51-year-old secret wasn't found by one person, but by a team. It was a global collaboration, a perfect mix of relentless curiosity and raw computing power. The 3 men who finally broke the silence were David Oranchak, the American software developer, Sam Blake, a mathematician from Melbourne, Australia, and Jarl van Eyck, a warehouse worker and programmer from Belgium. Their partnership began online. Oranchak was already a pillar of the Zodiac community. Blake, the mathematician, brought a fresh perspective, running complex transpositional schemes. But Van Eyck was the trio's secret weapon. He created A's Decrypt, a powerful, custom-built piece of software designed specifically to tackle these kinds of monster ciphers. Their approach was born from years of frustration. They figured the Zodiac wrote his message and then read the letters in a non-standard way, like diagonally, before enciphering them. This transposition was the key. If they couldn't figure out the killer's hidden path through the grid, they'd never crack the code. The task was monumental. Sam Blake started generating hundreds of thousands of possible arrangements of the Z340. He wrote scripts that rearranged the symbols in every conceivable way, horizontally, vertically, in zigzags, in spirals. He created a mind-boggling 650,000 different versions of the cipher. This massive library of manipulated ciphers was then fed into Jarl Van Eyck's A's Decrypt software. Oranchak coordinated the effort, running Blake's variations through the program, one by one. The hope was that if one of Blake's versions happened to be the right one, A's Decrypt might spot a flicker of recognizable English in the noise. For months, the process returned nothing but gibberish. Hundreds of thousands of variations led to dead ends. It was a search for a single needle in a haystack made of 650,000 other needles. Then, on December 3, 2020, they found something. While running one of Blake's more obscure variations, one that involved reading the cipher diagonally, like a chess bishop, the program spat out a few fragments. "Hope you are, and trying to catch me." Oranchak's heart must have been pounding. This was it. The tone, the arrogance, it was pure Zodiac. But the rest of the message was still garbled. They realized that the Zodiac had actually made a mistake while creating his masterpiece. He'd started his diagonal pattern correctly, but then shifted a column, throwing the rest of the cipher out of alignment. One tiny human error had confounded experts for half a century. Working feverishly, the team manually corrected for the Zodiac's mistake. And then, the rest of the message began to pour out. Word by word, the 51-year-old ghost started to speak. On December 5, 2020, they had the full text. They immediately sent their findings to the FBI, and a few days later, the agency officially confirmed it. The Z340 had been solved. So what was the big secret? After 51 years, the Z340 had promised a revelation. Surely, this would be where he finally slipped up and revealed his name. The solved text was released, and a chill ran down the spine of everyone who read it. The message wasn't a confession. It was one last, haunting taunt. The decrypted Z340 reads, with the Zodiac's original spelling mistakes. "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show," which brings up a point about me. "I am not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me, where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise, so they are afraid of death. I am not afraid, because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death." This was both a stunning breakthrough and a massive disappointment. Let's break it down. "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me." This is pure Zodiac. He's not just a killer. He's a performer reveling in the attention. The game is the whole point for him. "That wasn't me on the TV show." This is a crucial clue. 2 weeks before this cipher was mailed, a man claiming to be the Zodiac called in to the Jim Dunbar Show, a Bay Area TV talk show. The caller famously told the host, "I'm sick. I don't want to go to the gas chamber." Here, the real Zodiac is setting the record straight, disavowing the imposter and reinforcing his own fearless image. "I am not afraid of the gas chamber." This is a direct shot at the TV caller. Where the imposter sounded scared, the true Zodiac wants to make it clear he fears nothing. It's psychological warfare, designed to paint himself as an untouchable force. "Because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me." Here's that bizarre, self-serving theology again. He misspells paradise, just as he did in the first cipher, a signature quirk. He hammers home his belief that his victims will be his slaves in the afterlife. The phrase, "I now have enough slaves," is especially chilling. Does this mean he was done killing? Or was it just another boast? Where everyone else has nothing. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death. This is the core of his monstrous ego. He's created a worldview where he is the master, not just in this life, but in the next. The stuttering repetition of life is life, and the abrupt end on death gives it a manic quality, a final glimpse into a mind totally detached from reality. The message contained no name, no address, no clues to his identity. It was a dead end. After 51 years, the great secret was that there was no secret. The whole point of the cipher was the taunt itself. It was a 340-character middle finger to the world, a masterpiece of mockery. Solving the Z340 didn't close the book on the Zodiac. It slammed it shut in our faces. Cracking the Z340 was a monumental achievement, yet it only highlighted the shadows that still remain. The ghost spoke, but other whispers from the Zodiac's reign of terror are still stubbornly silent. Two ciphers, much shorter but no less tantalizing, continue to stump codebreakers. These are the Z13 and the Z32. The Z13 cipher, sent in April 1970, was attached to a letter that began with the most frustrating sentence in the whole case. "My name is." Following that was a string of 13 symbols. For decades, people believed the killer's name was right there, if only they could find the key. The Z32 cipher arrived 2 months later with a map of the San Francisco Bay Area. The Zodiac claimed this map code would reveal the location of a bomb, giving a clue about radians plus #inches along the radians from Mount Diablo. The problem with both ciphers is they're just too short. In cryptography, you need a long message to find patterns. With only 13 or 32 characters, there's so little data that it's almost impossible to prove a unique solution. Many different methods could produce a plausible-sounding answer. It's like trying to guess a word from only one of its letters. Many experts now believe these short ciphers might be junk, meaningless gibberish designed as a final red herring to send everyone on a wild goose chase forever. That hasn't stopped people from trying. In 2021, a French engineer named Fakel Zaraoui claimed to have solved both ciphers using the key from the Z340. His proposed solution to Z13 revealed the name Lawrence K., a man who was a fringe suspect who died in 2010. His Z32 solution supposedly pointed to a location near a school in South Lake Tahoe, where K lived. But Zaraoui's claims haven't been verified or widely accepted. The methodology is questionable, and the core problem remains. With such short ciphers, it's hard to tell a real solution from a forced coincidence. And so, the mystery just gets deeper. Cracking the Z340 was a victory, but a hollow one. It tore down the Zodiac's greatest shield, only to reveal there was nothing behind it. We're left right back where we started, with a nameless phantom and two final, cryptic whispers that may never be truly understood. The solution of the Z340 proved that even after half a century, this case isn't dead. New technology and dedicated minds can still shed light on its darkest corners. But the biggest question of all is still out there. The Zodiac's identity remains a ghost in the machine. So what are your theories? Do you think those final ciphers hold a real clue? Or are they just a meaningless taunt? Who is the Zodiac? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This case has been kept alive by public passion, and that conversation is more important than ever. And if you find these deep dives into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries as compelling as we do, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. The story of the Zodiac Killer is more than just a true crime tale. It's a modern myth about evil, the limits of investigation, and our unyielding obsession with the unknown. He was more than a murderer. He was a master of psychological terror who knew that fear was a far more powerful weapon than any gun or knife. His greatest creations weren't his crime scenes, but his letters and ciphers. They were his legacy, his twisted path to the immortality he craved. The incredible work of David Oranchak, Sam Blake, and Jarl Van Eyck gave us a peek behind that curtain. They pierced the veil of his most elaborate puzzle and showed us the mind of the man behind it. Arrogant, delusional, and pathetic in his desperate need for attention. But the victory was bittersweet. The solved cipher was just a mirror, reflecting his ego, not his name. Today, the case remains open, a wound in the American psyche that has never truly healed. Forensic genealogy offers a glimmer of hope, the same technology that closed the book on monsters like the Golden State Killer. Maybe a stray cell on an old stamp holds the final secret. Or maybe not. Maybe the Zodiac was just as careful as he was clever, leaving nothing behind but his myth. We're left with a terrifying question. What happens when the monster is never found? What do we do when the story has no end? Zodiac represents the horrifying thought that someone can inflict so much pain, create so much chaos, and simply walk away, swallowed by the crowd. He is America's Jack the Ripper, a boogeyman whose true face we may never see. His final, solved message wasn't an answer, but a restatement of his horrifying philosophy. That for some, the ultimate thrill is the hunt, and the greatest prize is the enduring, echoing silence that follows a perfect getaway. The game, for him, may be over, but for us, the haunting continues.